Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's me, Albatross. I am here to finish up this complaint. Now, I wanted to warn you guys, causes of action 2 through 8. I'm not going to read all of it, mainly because they're basically just repeating things that I've already gone over. And that's why I skipped to the 9th cause of action. Now, don't panic if you want to read it, even though it repeats stuff. I'll have it linked in this video's description. And then I'll do my best to remember to try to link it in all the other previous parts of this video too. But yeah, so that way, I'm not trying to skip anything important. I read all those causes of action. They're just like repeating what they've already said. But it's not until we get to the 9th cause of action that they and in this 9th cause of action, it is negligent failure to warn, and it's all plaintiffs against Shane Pierce, Christina Parham, fake-ish cop Pelleter, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Valdez, Odell Beckham Jr., Drewski, Jaguar Wright, Helena Harris Scott, Brandy Cunningham, and the other defendants that are not named. The defendant does. In case you don't know, we got two plaintiffs that are Jane and John Doe, but there's also some defendants who are does as well, who have not been named yet. Oh yeah, and I wanted to let you guys know something too real quick before I begin. In the beginning of May, the first or second week of May, I will be actually in Washington, D.C. So please leave a comment below if you'd like me to, make an appearance for the first time, or if, you want to see me, question people on the street, how they feel about the missing kids. Just let me know, because I feel like it would be a very good opportunity to, remind people about these children that are still very much missing. And like I said before, I really don't care at this point. I mean, not that, I obviously do care. I just mean, at this point, it doesn't matter if they are alive or dead. We need to know. We need to know. And whoever is behind this needs to be held accountable. And in my opinion, that's kind of why they're not talking about it. Because I feel like whoever's accountable maybe possibly could be someone who they're trying to work with. I don't know. I don't know the answers to why they wouldn't bring this up. You would think that particularly the Republicans right now, you would think that they'd be bringing it up all the time, because these children were quote misplaced under the Biden administration. So there's this big, political party beef going on TV right now. So I don't understand. I feel like that this could be something that would shut the opposing side down so quick by bringing up these 500,000 missing children that are still missing, but they're not doing it. And there's got to be a reason for that. They didn't just forget. Okay, the Trump administration mentioned these missing children during his campaign. So it's not like he doesn't know. He knows that there are 500,000 missing children. They know. And the news articles, don't be misled by the headlines, okay? When they say that number's not true, it actually is very true, because the reason they lost track of that many children is because they weren't even given court dates to follow up with. So once they released these unaccompanied minors, they had no way to keep track of them. They had no way to keep track of them. And they kept doing it and doing it and doing it until there's now we're at 500,000 children missing in our borders. So yeah. Let me know if you want me to go to DC and talk about it. All right, here we go. 9th cause of action. Here we go. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference and reallege each of the preceding and all paragraphs below as though fully set forth and brought in this cause of action. Defendants' conduct created a risk of physical or emotional harm to plaintiffs. Defendants knew and had reason to know that plaintiffs Ashley Parham and John Doe were at risk of sexual assault and abuse by Diddy. Despite the knowledge of the danger in the participation in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise, defendants did not alert plaintiffs to the risk of assault, harassment, kidnapping, rape, and or other attacks by Diddy. In fact, defendants facilitated and assisted Diddy in his illegal, deviant activities and despicable behavior. Defendant Pelletier represented he was lawfully transporting plaintiff's does for the purpose of outstanding warrants. Defendant Shane specifically represented to plaintiff that she would be safe while a guest in his home and would be free of a risk of attack. Defendants had reason to know that plaintiffs would be unaware of the risk of sexual assault, harassment, kidnapping, rape, and or other attacks by Diddy and the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. A warning to plaintiffs by any defendant that they were at risk of sexual assault, harassment, kidnapping, physical assault, rape, and or other attacks by Diddy and other defendants would have reduced the risk of harm to plaintiffs. As a legal and direct result of the aforementioned conduct and omission of defendants, plaintiffs were sexually assaulted, harassed, kidnapped, physically assaulted, raped, and or otherwise attacked and robbed of their dignity and personal safety. The depraved attacks on plaintiff caused plaintiff to suffer serious psychological and physical harm from which she may never fully recover. As a direct and legal result of defendants' failure to warn, plaintiffs suffered damages, both economic and general, non-economic damages, according to the proof provided. All right, and that was the 9th cause of action. Now we're getting to the 10th cause of action. And this is specifically all plaintiffs versus just Diddy. This is specifically about Diddy, referencing the action of negligent supervision and retention. At all times material, defendants were employed by Diddy under the control and authority of Diddy. Defendants were unfit or incompetent and posed a particular risk of sexually harassing, assaulting, and or mentally abusing plaintiff. Diddy knew or should have known not only that defendants were unfit or incompetent and posed a particular risk of sexual harassment, physically or mentally abusing plaintiffs, but also that this unfitness created a particular risk to plaintiffs. So basically they're saying Diddy was like aware of the risk of his cohorts. Diddy knew or should have known that defendants Odell Beckham Jr. and Drewski had previously engaged and was continuing to engage in unlawful sexual conduct for his own personal sexual gratification. Diddy knew or should have known that it was foreseeable that defendants Odell and Drewski was engaging or would engage in illicit sexual activities with plaintiffs under the cloak of authority, confidence, and trust bestowed upon him through Diddy. At no time during the alleged period did Diddy have in place a reasonable system or procedure to investigate, supervise, and monitor defendants Odell Beckham Jr. and Drewski to prevent sexual and verbal abuse, sexual assault, nor did he implement a system or procedure to oversee or monitor conduct towards individuals they encountered. Diddy conspired to, and did, breach his duties of care owed to plaintiff, including by turning a blind eye and encouraging known abuses by Odell Beckham Jr. and Drewski, and the known dangerous conditions of the Diddy sex enterprise, and by continuing to expose individuals like Ashley Parham and John Doe to these dangers for decades. So even though Diddy knew or should have known of these sexually illicit activities by himself and Odell Beckham Jr. and Drewski, he failed to use reasonable care in supervising Odell Beckham Jr. and Drewski and did nothing to reasonably investigate supervise, or monitor Odell and Drewski to ensure the safety of individuals they encountered. Diddy's negligence in supervising and or retaining defendants, Odell and Drewski, was a substantial fear in causing harm to plaintiff. As a result of the above described conduct, plaintiffs has expended significant costs on therapy and suffered damages including deprivation of income and benefits, loss of employment opportunities, severe physical and emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, humiliation, loss of enjoyment of life, and damage to her reputation and career. Plaintiffs claim compensatory damages and punitive damages herein. The amount of damages sought herein exceeds the jurisdictional limits of all other courts which would otherwise have jurisdiction. Okay, so then we get to the 11th cause of action, which is the intentional infliction of emotional distress, all plaintiffs versus all defendants. And I just wanted to say one more thing before I moved on. I believe these plaintiffs. I believe them. I'm just concerned for them because if you all know my feelings about Tony Busby, he is, I believe, in my opinion, is one of these agents of chaos, much like Jaguar Wright or, anybody else that's pretending to stand for victims. And I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about Jaguar Wright. I don't know. But the thing is, what I'm concerned about is, this was the case that originally filed by Tony Busby. Well, now Ariel Mitchell is the lawyer along with Sean Perez. And Ariel Mitchell, I don't know how to feel about her. She has a reputation. She has a pretty good reputation for making these kinds of things disappear. And listen, she's a lawyer, her job is to do what her clients want. That's not the issue I've got. The issue I have, and I think a lot of other people share this, is the issue of the fact that she directly walked out, remember the grand jury and all that? Her and her client, literally, even though they knew they weren't supposed to, walked right out and started telling the press a lot of stuff they probably shouldn't have said. And it definitely was not helping. If anything, it was helping Diddy. And it became more apparent and more obvious when, this gag order was put into place, but yet they weren't holding people like Ariel Mitchell and Courtney Burgess. They weren't holding them accountable for that gag order. So, they were literally thrashing everybody else and their mom, but them too. So, I find it concerning. I really hope Ariel Mitchell does her clients justice. I really do. Anywho, okay. Defendants conspired to and did engage in conduct that was extreme and outrageous and intentionally caused severe emotional distress to plaintiffs. Defendants' conduct exceeded all possible bounds of decency. Defendants acted with the intent and knowledge that plaintiffs suffered emotional distress due to their inexcusable and outrageous conduct. Defendants' conduct caused plaintiffs to suffer physical injury, severe mental emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of the enjoyment of life. Defendants' unlawful actions were intentional, done with malice, and or showed a deliberate, willful, wanton, and reckless indifference to plaintiffs' rights. Plaintiffs' claims compensatory and punitive damages herein. The amount of damages sought herein exceeds the jurisdictional limits of all other courts which would otherwise have jurisdiction. Okay. So, now we get to the 12th cause of action. And this one is concerning, this one's kind of a shorter one. This one's concerning the negligent infliction of emotional distress. All plaintiffs versus all defendants. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference and reallege each of the preceding paragraphs and all paragraphs below as though fully set forth and brought in this cause of action. Okay. Defendants were negligent by both conspiring to and each breaching the duty of care they owed to the plaintiffs to keep her safe, and by breaching their duty to properly supervise and control defendants within the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Plaintiffs suffered physical injuries, severe mental and emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of enjoyment of life. Defendants' negligence were a substantial factor in causing plaintiffs to suffer physical injuries, severe mental, emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, enjoyment, loss of enjoyment of life. Okay. So, the 13th cause of action, which is concerning unjust enrichment. And this is all plaintiffs versus specifically Shane Pierce, Christina Karam, Mr. Pelleter, Mr. Valdez, Brandy Cunningham, Drewski, Helena Harris Scott, Big Homie CC, Jaguar Wright, and the defendants Doe's. Okay. Defendant Shane received significant revenue, specifically a new car, for his betrayal and his involvement in plaintiff's assault, battery, rape, false imprisonment, and his role in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Defendants Pelleter, Valdez, Christina Karam, Brandy Cunningham, Helena Harris Scott, Jaguar Wright, and the Does received revenue in the form of cash payment for their involvement in plaintiff Doe's assault, battery, false imprisonment, and his role in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Other defendants named herein received significant revenue for their involvement in plaintiff's assault and their roles in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Defendants appreciate and have knowledge of such benefits and retain them to this day. Under principles of equity and good conscience, defendants should not be permitted to retain the profit they received and retained at plaintiff's expense, while refusing to provide compensation for the injuries suffered by plaintiffs as a result of their unlawful conduct, including their failure to guard against, educate as to, or otherwise failure to prevent such injuries inflicted upon plaintiffs. Other principles of equity and good conscience, defendants should not be permitted to retain the profit they received and retain at the plaintiff's expense. Okay, yeah, they just repeating the same paragraph again. Okay. Plaintiffs receive restitution and or, I don't know that word, of all monies. They misspelled that. Defendants have unjustly received and retained as a result of their unlawful conduct and participation in the Diddy sex abuse cover-up enterprise alleged herein. And I have to say, Ariel Mitchell, don't you have paralegals? Don't you have paralegals who can edit this and stop repeating the sentences? And oh my gosh, this is not the easiest read. I'm not trying to, complain about something relatively small, but I don't know. I would think having it, I don't know. I would think that'd be important. Okay. Anywho, 14th cause of action. Aiding and abetting all plaintiffs against all defendants. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference. Okay, I'm not going to repeat that sentence over and over. Defendants knew that an assault, battery, sexual assault was being committed and was going to be committed against plaintiffs because of defendants' involvement in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Defendants provided drugs to be used to take advantage of plaintiffs without the knowledge or consent of plaintiffs. Defendants knew plaintiffs had been and would be assaulted because of their involvement in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Defendants' conduct was a substantial factor in causing harm to plaintiffs. Through the aforementioned acts, defendants caused plaintiffs an imminent apprehension of harmful or offensive contact with an intimate part of plaintiff's body, and sexually offensive contact with plaintiffs resulted. As a result of the defendant's conduct, plaintiffs has suffered economic injury. Plaintiff's general, special, and consequential damages are in an amount to be proven at trial, but in no event is less than the minimum jurisdictional amount of this court. As a result of defendants' above described conduct, plaintiffs have suffered and continues to suffer great emotional distress and was prevented and will continue to be prevented from performing daily activities and obtaining the full enjoyment of life. As described in this complaint, the defendant's conduct was done with oppression, fraud, and or malice warranting significant damages, including punitive damages. Here, plaintiffs were sexually assaulted by Diddy, Shane Pierce, Odell Beckham Jr., Drewski, Mr. Valdez, and Doe at Shane's residence. Plaintiff was legally on the premises as a guest and invitee of Shane. And Shane, through renting the premises, had dominion and control over the premises where plaintiff was harmed. Diddy had dominion and control over the actions of Shane, Odell, Drewski, and Doe, and failed to step in and stop them from assaulting Ashley Parham. As the owner of the property, Shane Pierce had a duty to protect plaintiff from the harm she suffered at the hands of Diddy, Odell, Drewski, and Doe, and breached his duty when he failed to stop them from sexually assaulting Ashley Parham. In furtherance of this breach, Shane Pierce encouraged Diddy, Odell Beckham Jr., Drewski, and Doe to continue their assault on plaintiff. Plaintiff has suffered immensely because of defendant Shane's intentional breach of his duty to her. Plaintiff's Does, the Jane and John Doe plaintiffs, were battered, sexually assaulted, and assaulted by Diddy, Pelter, Gonzalez, Valdez at Shane Pierce's residence. Plaintiffs were legally on the premises as they were kidnapped and forcefully brought there. Shane, through renting the premises, had dominion and control over the premises where plaintiffs were harmed. Diddy had dominion and control over the actions of Shane, Odell, Drewski, Pelter, Gonzalez, Valdez, and Doe, and failed to step in and stop them from assaulting and battering plaintiffs. As the owner of the property, Shane Pierce had a duty to protect plaintiffs from the harm they suffered from Diddy, Pelter, Gonzalez, Valdez, and breached his duty when he failed to stop them from battering and assaulting John and Jane Doe. In furtherance of this breach, Shane Pierce encouraged defendants to continue their assault on them all. Plaintiffs have suffered immensely because of Shane Pierce's intentional breach of his duty to them. As a result of breach of his duty, plaintiffs has suffered and continues to suffer harm, including severe emotional distress, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which they are entitled to award of monetary damages and other relief. Defendant's conduct described above was willful, wanton, and malicious. At all relevant times, defendants acted with conscious disregard for plaintiff's rights and feelings, acted with the knowledge of or with reckless disregard for the fact that their conduct was certain to cause injury to plaintiffs and intended to cause fear, physical injury, and or pain and suffering to plaintiffs. By virtue of the foregoing, plaintiffs are entitled to recover punitive damages. And the 15th cause of action has to do with trafficking and the Victims Protection Act. All plaintiffs versus all defendants. Okay, plaintiffs incorporate... Okay, I'm not going to repeat that one again. Defendants knowingly and intentionally participated in, perpetrated, assisted, supported, and facilitated a sex trafficking venture that was in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, together and with others in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1590. Among other things, defendants knowingly and intentionally recruited, enticed, provided, obtained, advertised, and solicited by various means plaintiffs, knowing that the defendants would use means of force, threats of force, fraud, coercion, and a combination of such means to cause plaintiffs to engage in non-consensual sex acts. Defendants had actual knowledge that they were perpetrating and facilitating Diddy's sex abuse and sex trafficking conspiracy to recruit, solicit, entice, coerce, harbor, transport, obtain, and provide plaintiffs into non-consensual sex acts through the means of force, threats of force, fraud, abuse of process, and coercion. Despite such knowledge, defendants intentionally paid for, facilitated, perpetrated, and participated in Diddy's violations of 18 U.S.C. 1590, which the defendants knew and were in reckless disregard of the fact that Diddy would coerce, defraud, and force plaintiffs to engage in non-consensual sex acts. Defendants' actions were in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce. By taking the concrete steps alleged in this complaint, defendants knowingly participated in sex trafficking and furthered the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. The concrete steps constituted taking part in the sex trafficking venture and were necessary for its success. The concrete steps constituted active engagement by defendants in the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. Defendants knew that its active engagement would lead to and cause coercive sex trafficking. Defendants' affirmative conduct was committed knowing and in reckless disregard of the facts that Diddy would use his means and influence to force and intimidate plaintiff into engaging in non-consensual sex acts. Defendants' conduct was outrageous and intentional. They really love to repeat these sentences, don't they, guys? I'm sorry. Defendants' knowing and intentional conduct has caused plaintiffs serious harm, including, without limitation, physical, psychological, emotional, financial, and reputational. Defendants' knowing and intentional conduct has caused plaintiffs harm that are sufficiently serious under all the surrounding circumstances to compel a reasonable person of the same background and in the same circumstances to perform or continue performing non-consensual sexual activity to avoid incurring further harm. All right, we're at the 16th cause of action, all plaintiffs versus all defendants. Defendants directly committed and perpetrated violations of Chapter 77, Title 18 U.S. Code, including 18 U.S.C. 1590, by aiding, abetting, and inducing the sex trafficking venture and the sex trafficking of plaintiffs. Defendants themselves directly violated Chapter 77 by committing and perpetrating these violations. Among other things, defendants aided, abetted, and induced Diddy's sex trafficking venture and sex trafficking of Ashley Parham and John Doe, knowing that Diddy would use means of force, threats of force, fraud, coercion, and a combination of such means to cause plaintiffs to engage in non-consensual sex acts. By aiding, abetting, and inducing Diddy's sex trafficking venture and sex trafficking of plaintiff Ashley Parham and John Doe, defendants benefited both financially and by receiving things of value from participating in this sex cover-up enterprise. Defendants had actual knowledge that they were aiding, abetting, and inducing Diddy and his co-conspirators' sexual abuse and sex trafficking conspiracy to recruit, solicit, entice, coerce, harbor, transport, obtain, and provide plaintiffs into non-consensual sex acts through the means of force, threats of force, fraud, abuse of process, and coercion. Defendants knew and should have known that Diddy had engaged in acts in violation of the TVPA. Okay, guys, I just paused the recording for a minute and read through the next, 5 causes of action, and they literally copy-paste. So, I'm going directly to the very last cause of action, the 19th, which is false imprisonment, all plaintiffs versus all defendants. Defendants intentionally detained and or prevented plaintiffs from leaving the premises before imprisoning plaintiffs acting in deliberate malice and for the purpose of trafficking and or sexually assaulting and raping plaintiffs. Defendants imprison plaintiffs without just or reasonable cause, without lawful privilege, without plaintiff's consent, and or without probable cause for an appreciable amount of time, and therefore deprive plaintiffs of their personal civil liberties. Defendants' unlawful conduct resulted in the false imprisonment of plaintiffs on March 23, 2018. Ashley Parham was invited to Shane Pierce's home as a guest. Plaintiff was under the impression she was in a safe environment where only she and Shane would be present. On or about the date enumerated above, Ashley Parham's clothes, phone, purse, keys, and cell phone were hid and confiscated in an effort to prevent her from leaving the premises after Diddy and the other defendants arrived at Shane's residence. Defendants forced Ashley Parham against her will and over her protest with threats of physical violence, forced Ashley Parham to engage in non-consensual sexual activities with Diddy, Shane, Odell, Drewski, and Doe. Defendants forced plaintiffs' does against their will and over their protest with threats of physical violence, battered, assault, and abused plaintiffs. Plaintiffs were not released from their imprisonment until they made their harrowing escape as enumerated above in this complaint. Plaintiffs believe that procuring their false imprisonment was made intentionally, with actual malice, and was intended to harm plaintiffs solely for the purpose of sexual gratification of Diddy and in furtherance of the Diddy sex abuse and cover-up enterprise. As a proximate result of the acts of defendants, plaintiffs have suffered great damage to their person, reputation, and embarrassment. As an approximate result of the acts of defendants, each of them herein alleged, plaintiffs have been and will continue to be prevented from having a normal life. The amount of damage done to plaintiffs are still ongoing and not fully known at this time. As an additional proximate result of the acts of defendants, plaintiffs were injured in their health, strength, activity, sustained shocking injury to their person and injury to their body, requiring several hospitalizations, treatments from therapists, and other medical professionals. All of these injuries have caused plaintiffs to suffer extreme and severe physical pain and mental anguish. These injuries will result in some level of permanent disability to the plaintiffs. As a further proximate result of the acts of defendants, plaintiffs were required to and did employ physicians, therapists, and other medical professionals. Okay, they just said all this. The acts of defendants, each of them herein alleged, were willful, wanton, malicious, and oppressive, justifying the awarding of punitive damages. Okay, now the request for relief is what they say. Wherefore, plaintiffs respectfully request judgment against defendants, awarding compensatory, consequential, exemplary, punitive, restitution, unjust enrichment, equitable, and treble damages, in an amount to be determined at trial. Costs of suit, attorney's fees, and such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. And then they demand a jury trial on all issues so triable. Ugh, man, guys. So that was the end of it. I noticed a comment from one of my subscribers that has been following me for a while. Comment that talking about this lawsuit was a distraction. And yes, I agree. This is a distraction. However, the reason I made videos reading this lawsuit is because this distraction, in fact, is connected to the larger scheme of this child trafficking industry. Now, they did a very good job in this lawsuit of making it sound like this was just some kind of, like, half-ass operation. They did, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, they did a good job making it sound like that. Or at least, Ariel Mitchell made a good job sounding like that. However, though, I mean, in case you guys aren't aware, I mean, people like me have been alleging this for a couple years now about this notion of like a shadow government and a deep state. And we were all called everything, like from, conspiracy theorists to like terrorists, you know what I mean? Called everything in between. And I think now more than ever, it is very evident. Just look at the news. Like, look at the massive amounts of fraud that they found. Not only have they found, but now there are those trying to gaslight and act like, well, it's not that much fraud. When our federal government has put people in jail for long amounts of time for far less than what they have found. Considering the fact that it seems like every 2 seconds, a certain group of people, I'm not going to say any names or nothing, but there's a certain group of people in like Congress and the Senate who like to flip-flop, or at least they've been flip-flopping a lot lately. For example, just for an example, the fact that they're trying to act like finding waste, fraud, and abuse, even though they've all been preaching it this whole time, suddenly they change their mind when it's someone they don't like doing it. Or someone who might hold them accountable. That's just one example. How about the same group of people who have been screaming from the rooftops about releasing an actual terrorist who supports killing children, and not even just him, have screamed from the rooftop about pardoning to Joe Biden to pardon terrorists, and to let them stay here, rapists, all the like. And now they're upset because the legal immigrant named Elon Musk is about to expose them. Now they've just suddenly flipped position. And then we all remember, right? We all remember during the State of the Union address, like about a week ago, when they were all holding up their dumb bingo cards, like Save Medicaid, or I stand with federal workers, this blah 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 blah. Well, they're the same ones now trying to shut them all down, trying to shut them all down. So they keep flip-flopping. What does that tell you? Now, in my opinion, I don't honestly believe that all of these people honestly have changed their opinions overnight, or they're that short-sighted. No, I don't believe that. I believe they know exactly what they're doing. I believe that they've got others that they answer for, or that they answer to specifically. People that they answer to, and which is why you see this constant flip-flopping back and forth, trying to scare people. Like, is it just me, or does it absolutely reek of desperation? Does anybody else pick that up? Like, there's the sheer desperation in their voices, and like full-blown panic. Like, they are literally doing everything but pulling their own hair out. They're cussing, they're acting belligerent. Like, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And these are the people running the country, acting like a bunch of babies. Like, it's gotten so bad. And I'm not just picking on the Democrats. There's Republicans in there too that have profited just as much as them Democrats have. They might like to try to hide their hands now, but they're involved too. But the thing about it is, though, like, they're starting to come off. Like, to be honest, if you take the most poorly educated elementary school in this country right now, and take the lowest graded class in that school, in that elementary school, put them in Congress right now and replace them, I still think they would do a better job. A bunch of 5-year-olds would do a better job than what these people are doing right now. They are obviously desperate. They are obviously answering to someone for them to keep changing their mind radically. Like, it can't just simply be because they all hate Trump. I mean, yeah, sure, some of them are that narcissistic and petty to do that. But all of them? All of them? Not one of them is like seeing the pettiness? Not one of them sees that the people who voted them in want this to happen. Like, they're answering to somebody who's far more powerful. I don't know who. I would like to say it's BlackRock, because I like to blame them on a lot. But to be honest, I don't know. It may not be. Maybe BlackRock's the one who's come to save us all. Who knows? Probably not. But, you know, I'm just saying, I don't know who it is. I'm just saying it's every single passing day, it's becoming increasingly aware that these people are desperately trying to appease someone or something. I don't know who. But oh, come back later today, because I'm going to put up my web that I've been making. I've noticed a lot of YouTubers lately who have been like these pop culture influencers making like these dumb webs, no offense, these dumb webs like connecting the Hollywood agents, the magazines, the Britney Spears, the P. Diddy's, and bless their hearts, I just want to shake them and be like, that is just one small part of a bigger web. Stop focusing on Hollywood. They are just one little small piece. Okay? One little small little piece. They don't control anything. They answer to the same people that I think that these people, these politicians answer to. If they are people, I don't know. But whatever it is, it's evil. And it's just, it's like, it's freaking madness right now. Like, ugh. But the webs, guys, it's like you got to expand your webs. Those of you who are working, I'm working on a web too. That's not what I'm making fun of. I'm just saying, I'll show you guys my web in a little while, because you got to expand your web beyond Hollywood, okay? Hollywood only deserves one little bubble in the much bigger web. And I'll be back and I'll show you all what I mean in a little while. This web, and I know it's not complete yet, but like it has some alarming correlations in it that I've noticed, and I'll see if you guys share my concerns. But yeah, I'll be back later today. Thanks for listening.